total football the total answer for AFC Richmond? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 7, The Strings That Bind Us, which is premiering on Apple TV Plus on April 26, 2023. It's the episode that follows last week's excursion to Amsterdam, where the team did a whole bunch of mischief, and Ted, in some barbecue sauce fueled fever dream, came up with a strategy for the team that mirrors the total football concept that the Netherlands made famous. Now this week they install total football. They try to get all the kinks worked out in 1 week before their big game against Arsenal. Will it work? Well, we'll find out together, but my hot take is, look, I think this episode is really great. I love this episode. I felt like the Ted Lasso train is back on track. Look, I thought it was a beautiful episode. I liked the themes. I liked the overall pace. I liked the humor. It showed that there was a lot of life left in this episode after 2 episodes of kind of stalling, which I really lamented. Now it feels like Ted Lasso is moving forward, and I'm all for it. So I'm going to tell you a little more about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then go into a recap. So as you can imagine, in the recap, there will be spoilers. I don't want to know what happens in this episode. I would turn it off then. But before that, I'll try to keep it vague so you can watch and just get my thoughts. So in Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 7, The Strings That Bind Us, you have Ted Lasso trying to install total football, an entirely different strategy, an entirely different kind of way of playing in 1 week. That is a very tall order, but Ted feels like it'll be good for the team, and so he goes forward. And you also have some other things that are happening. You've got Jack and Keeley's relationship progressing. You have Sam trying to speak up for some of the political things that he sees going on, and also excited that his dad is coming to town. You have Nate trying to take his relationship to the next level, or I guess any level. He's going to try to ask out Jade from the local Greek restaurant on a date. So you have all this bubbling up while they are trying to get ready for Arsenal. Does it work? Well, you have to watch the episode to find out. But things I liked about this episode. The first, look, I love the growth. I liked that you had a lot of the characters. Things I like. Look, I love the growth. It felt like every character in this episode grew a little bit. And then that's kind of the thing I love most about this episode versus the previous 2. It felt like the last 2 episodes were just kind of Ted Lasso stalling. I felt like it was not progressing the story. It wasn't progressing, the relationships, things like that. This episode, it feels like a lot of the major storylines have progressed, which is very good because there are a lot of them going on. And it feels like the characters are kind of growing together and growing as a team. The second thing I loved is the humor. Look, this is a very funny episode. There's a lot of really funny moments. That doesn't mean it's just laugh out loud. There are some serious moments as well in this episode, but I really like the humor. It kind of brought back that Ted Lasso feel, and I really enjoyed it, especially kind of the namesake of this episode, The Strings That Bind. That was a very, very funny scene. I'll talk about that in the recap. And the last thing I loved is the hope. Look, you kind of feel like something special is going to happen. It feels like the team is progressing. It feels like the episode moves the story forward, which is good because I really want to see where this season goes. And it feels like now we're finally kind of moving along that train after a couple episodes of stalling. So that is Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 7, The Strings That Bind. It comes to Apple TV Plus on April 26, 2023. I definitely think you should check it out. Now I'm going to go into the recap. So if you don't want to know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now. So, like I said, Ted is installing total football for his team, and that involves a lot of different aspects. The first is conditioning. He runs them ragged. They run until they all throw up. They have to be in great shape to play this kind of evolving, moving form of soccer. The second is versatility, where you have players who are moving more fluidly. You're not playing like a set position. You're kind of moving throughout and playing the position that you end up in. And so you have to have players who can kind of move and adapt and take over different positions. And so for that, he has characters switch. He has some players play out of position. He has some players just completely change, and that is supposed to teach them that they can move, and that is supposed to give them the freedom to move about the pitch. And the last one is awareness, and this is where the namesake comes from. In this part, you're supposed to be aware of your other teammates, aware of their position, so you can constantly be adjusting. And so he ties strings to the various players to kind of connect them so they don't stray too far. But Roy has a different take on this. Rather than tying it to like their arms or their legs, Roy ties it to their genitalia. And so you have players who are very, very concerned about how far apart they drift, and that kind of instills in them a certain positional awareness. And that is also where the title of this episode comes from, The Strings That Bind, from some very funny and very painful scenes where players are trying to move about the pitch and not stray too far, and sometimes they do. Now, So you have this whole total football installation. You also have some Nate storyline where Nate is trying to ask out Jade at the local Greek restaurant. They had this lovely dinner after Nate's like model girl that he was dating, like very, very briefly, left him at the restaurant because she wasn't impressed with it. She went off to go, hang out with her model friends. And Nate kind of was so, I don't know, sad or embarrassed. He just kind of stayed at the restaurant until it closed. But then at the end of that, Jade sat down, the kind of like server, the greeter, the kind of person that is like running the front of the restaurant. She sat down after her shift was over and kind of like hung out with Nate, and they had a lovely time. And so now Nate wants to ask her out. You also have Keeley and Jack's relationship progressing. Now it seems to be going great. Like Keeley's very nervous because she is dating Jack and she doesn't want that to be like a weird work thing or a conflict, I guess. And so she tries to hide it, but Jack at the start of the episode just kind of like announced it to everyone, like, hey, everyone at whatever Keeley's business is called, I forget what it's called, we're dating, it's cool, ask us if you have any questions, but it's all cool. And so now they start dating, but unfortunately for Keeley, Jack kind of smothers her. She's talking to Rebecca, and Rebecca calls it a love bomb. Like Jack is kind of going over the top, trying to sweep Keeley off her feet every single time. But it ends up being like a little bit too aggressive, and it really kind of like stifles Keeley. So thankfully, she doesn't like flip out. She doesn't, end things too quickly. So she meets up with Jack at like a breakfast, and there she kind of like says, hey, look, you're coming on a little too strong. I'm really happy. I really love this, but you're coming on too strong. And they kind of hash it out, which is sweet. Like I liked that. I liked how Keeley just didn't give up. I like how the relationship didn't just kind of end because Jack was coming on too strong. Keeley just talked it out, and now we'll see what happens, but it seems like things will be good. So that is the Keeley Jack storyline. So for the Nate storyline, Nate gets it in his mind from his mom and his sister that he needs to do something like grand and romantic. And so he goes and creates this really cute like card box thing to ask her out. He very proud of it. He's going to the restaurant to ask out Jade. And unfortunately for him, he trips crossing the street. The box falls in the middle of the street and just gets flattened by a car. So then Nate, in un-Nate fashion, goes up to her and just like asks her out. And she said yes. So look, I'm not happy that Nate is happy. I still want him to lose, but it is a pretty cute scene. So that is the Nate storyline. That's the Keeley storyline. And there's one other major storyline in this episode that really kind of has a lot of the emotional draw. You've got Sam's storyline. So Sam last season started up a restaurant to serve authentic Nigerian food to, honor his parents, like give him a sense of home in here, and also just kind of give a sense of community to the local population. If people are homesick and want to taste that food, they can get it. And his restaurant is doing very well. He's very excited because his father's going to come visit on Friday, and he's going to finally show him the restaurant that he's been working so hard to make. Now, his chef, Simi, who she has a very, very funny like presence here. It really kind of invokes the movie The Menu, which was one of my favorite movies of last year, where she's in the kitchen, she says things, and all of her sous chefs, like every time she says something, it goes, yes, chef. So she is also very, very concerned about a local politician who is being very kind of anti-immigrant. She really wants to do something, and Sam just kind of decides to use his platform to tweet at the politician. Remember Twitter? That used to be a thing. Well, it still exists in the Ted Lasso world. So Sam tweets at this politician, essentially like calling her out, hoping that she'll do better. She tweets back to him that like he should just play football and shut up and dribble, which might evoke some similar banter that happened in America. Well, now they're bringing it to Ted Lasso. They're bringing it to Britain, and that doesn't really go over well with Sam. He lets it go. But then she also tweets something at him about him being like a mediocre footballer. And so Sam tweets back, like, I'd rather be a mediocre footballer than a world-class bigot, which is aggressive for Sam. But I think he finally she finally like pushed his buttons enough to get a response. Now, that seemed like it could be the end of it. But unfortunately for Sam, when he goes to visit the restaurant a little bit later, he finds that someone vandalized it. They broke the window in the door. They got in. They kind of trashed the restaurant, wrote on the wall, like, shut up and dribble, like, just destroy the restaurant right before his father was set to visit, and when the restaurant was doing really, really well. So this kind of crushes Sam, and he comes to practice just, like, angry at the world. Everyone else is getting ready to kind of, like, practice this total football, and he's there. He's just very upset. But when he's there, when he's kind of lashing out at a teammate. His father shows up and, just kind of like tells him to calm down, and Sam just like collapses into his arms. So thankfully his father's there. He calms the situation down. He tells Sam he needs to go out and practice. And so it seems to maybe have smoothed over at least that situation, because they have the big game against Arsenal the next day. So now it's Arsenal day. You do get some soccer action. And in the game against Arsenal, Richmond looked terrible. I mean, look, they installed Total Football in 1 week. That is not enough time to really practice an entire new philosophy and a new system. So they look outmatched. They look like they are not playing right. They look confused. And so they go down 3-0 in the first half. Now it's halftime. Beard and Roy are saying like we could pull this back. We go back to the traditional 4-4-2. We could change up the tactics. And Ted's like, no, like, I think we'll do it. So Ted has a inspirational-ish speech. It's a fine speech. It's not his best, but it works. But then the real kicker here is that Jamie steps up and kind of like speaks to the team. And he says, the team had been complaining about Jamie because he kept dropping back. And they're like, you need to be at the front. You need to be the striker so you can score goals. And so Jamie kind of steps up and he says, like, I'm not doing it wrong. You all are doing it wrong, which is a very Jamie statement. It made you think he was going to like say something arrogant or whatnot. But he then goes on to say, like, you can't play to me. You have to play through me. And the team's like very confused. And he explains basically like he needs to drop back and let the game flow through him. He's basically going to go from like a number 9 to a number 10, which I guess makes sense. Although I think he's always been a striker, but he wants to sit back and kind of become more of a creator, kind of let the soccer flow through him and kind of orchestrate the offense. And that would move like Danny up front. It would move some of the players around, but it would allow Jamie some more movement, some more freedom, and allow him to kind of like distribute the ball and get the ball to people that can make plays, which may be him also, but he's going to kind of like be the conductor of this offense. Team's like, hey, that kind of makes sense. And it's nice because Jamie finally like steps up and he becomes the leader that we kind of expected him to be from the start of the season. He finally kind of like steps into that role. So they go out, they're fired up, they're ready to go. Now in the 75th minute, you have this beautiful, beautiful counterattack that is orchestrated by Jamie. Like they pass the ball around. Jamie's kind of involved in most of the play. He gets the ball right in front of goal after some beautiful, beautiful passes. And in a very un-Jamie-like moment, he backheels it to someone who is coming up to an attack, and they shoot into essentially a wide open goal, and they score. So Richmond finally scored 1 goal in the 75th minute. It's a beautiful, beautiful run of play. It looks fantastic. The commenters talk about how like Jamie just like conducted that beautiful, beautiful play. And everything looks good. Now they still lose. They still lose 3-1, but there are signs of life. There is hope for the team, and there's hope for the system that Ted is installing. And you can see this because Trent comes up to him after, and Trent is super excited. He's like, it's going to work. The Lasso way is going to work. And he's like, you have built incremental little confidence boosts throughout your 3 years, and you built trust, and now the team is finally buying in. Everyone seems excited, and I'm excited to see where this goes next. But that's not the end of the episode. There's one more scene left. So Sam is driving around with his dad, kind of talking, and he's like, do you want to see the restaurant? And his dad's like, yeah, I'd like to see it. So they go to see it. Sam is, a little upset because the restaurant is going to be destroyed. He gets there, and the door is fixed. The door that was shattered by someone who vandalized it is fixed. He kind of walks in, and wouldn't you know it, the entire team is there fixing up the restaurant. They were going to have it as a surprise, but Sam shows up, and they have like they're working on the restaurant. They're painting over the vandalism. They're cleaning up the glass. They're trying to get it back and running. And it's a very sweet moment. It's a very sweet gesture. And then you also find out when Sam introduces his dad to Simi says, it's very nice to meet you, Mr. Obisanya. And he's like, no, Mr. Obisanya was my father. Call me Ola. And at that moment, the person who's trying to fix the neon sign, the neon like restaurant sign, fixes it. And up in bright neon lights, you have Ola's. So it's a nice moment. I don't remember if you knew this before, but if you didn't, you finally find out that Sam's father's like nickname is Ola, and that's why Sam's restaurant is named Ola. So the restaurant is fixed up. The team has a nice meal together, and it does feel like everything is coming together. Look, I'm excited to see where this goes. As you can tell, I really like this episode. I thought it was beautiful. I love the kind of progression that happened, and I'm excited to see where this season goes from here. So that is Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 7, The Strings That Bind Us. It's coming to Apple TV Plus on April 26, 2023. Definitely check it out. Look, if you're in this far, you're going to keep going with Ted Lasso, and this is a really good episode to watch. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.